We have Christopher Chen with us, who is the founder and director of the Asian Virtual Humans Association. And Chris, I would probably do a very poor job of introducing you. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and also talk a little bit about your work in general with the Asian Virtual Human Association.
Yeah, and let me start from explain a little bit about the title or the name of this association. And the thing is that when we tried to register the name like 2 years ago, and we were told by the local Tokyo authority that the name related to virtual production was taken.
Oh,
So, so
imagine
we
that.
yeah, we just need to compromise and say, okay, then let's call a spiritual human association then. So this is the background of this association.
Okay.
And well, personally, actually, I started my career in the IT industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a Taiwanese, but I was expatriated to UK and China and also Thailand in Southeast Asia for a few
Yes.
years. And after IT industry, I kind of, got bored. So I somehow joined a company called Revolution, which is a 2D,
Yeah.
3D animation software developer.
Very well known.
And yeah, and during those time, I also co-founded another MPO called um, Pre-Visualization Society, Asian Visualization Society. But
And about what year
um,
was that you're mentioning that you founded that? What year was that?
I think,
Roughly.
2017
Okay,
something.
yeah, 2017 or so.
Yeah. And but you probably know that pre-visualization was not entirely welcome in Asia. And
Well,
not
the
so
reason I asked
many.
about the date is I remember that 2016, 17, 18 is when in the West, previs was really starting to become something that people were aware of, the potential and the value. But as you mentioned, there were people who were resistant to that because they were familiar with the traditional way of doing things. So, yes.
Exactly. And we even joined the what Secret Asia Kobe. I think, yeah, like Kobe. We tried to promote the concept, but it didn't work out very well. And in 2019, I started my own company, which is a software developing company.
Mm-hmm.
And in the meantime, we pretty much focused just on virtual human and virtual production. We took some project like we did the technical support for the year-end party for Taipei City earlier this year. And we take the things we learn from doing projects for others and make it into software. So we develop our software called Canvas Studio,
Mm-hmm.
which is based in Unreal. And to go with that, we have a app which is running on iPhone 13 above, which does the expensive camera tracking for everybody.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's what we do in terms of the company. And in terms of the MPO right now, I pretty much focus on Asian Virtual Human Association, but I'm also running the Taiwan VTuber Association. Yeah,
And
so
you've been
that's
very
myself.
active. You've been very active not only in industry, but also in academia as well.
Yeah, and because especially virtual production, a lot of schools still don't know how to put that into the proper curriculum. And for the associations that we started to promote a contest called 48 Hours
Yes.
Virtual Production Filming Contest. And initially, we have some very early, response from early adopters, like University of Surrey from UK, and some schools from Sweden, from Shanghai, and from US. But that's just some of them.
Yeah.
So we decided to do a lot of a workshop, which is a 12 hours workshop. And we get the assistance from a lot of studios. They simply let us use the studio free. It's amazing. One day it could be like 300,000 NT dollars.
Sure.
Yeah, you think about
Not
that.
cheap.
But the thing is that all the virtual production studios I've been to, like the Shanghai, Tokyo, or Taipei, actually, number one, the lack of talent,
Mm.
meaning that the engineer or the whatever you call them, the technical guys
Yeah.
they need to on-hand project. So which means that they do not have time to catch up with new technology,
Yes.
which means that their technical level will become fallen behind day by day.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
And they may not even
Imagine that.
realize it.
Yeah. Well, they do, but they don't have time for that. So yeah, so we when we go out to talk to the studios, if we want to do this contest, we want to do workshop, they just come and use, come and use. And let me share with you one interesting story. End
Sure.
of September, I went to Tokyo Seimonshoku Daigaku, which is a university. They joined the contest back in May, and obviously they don't have their own studio, so they
Right.
borrowed the studio from a studio called Nu, if I pronounce correctly, at Shibuya. And when I joined or talked to the CEO, the CEO was kind of pushing the professor. Why don't you let your students graduate earlier so they can come and work for me? This is exactly what he said, you know,
That's pretty
because
direct.
yeah, because he saw the a student can do create something, right?
Sure.
And within 48 hours. And in their facility, by the way, so which means that if they come to work as a worker there, they can just start to make
Yeah.
money for the company, which they need that. We all need it, don't we? And same thing. It's the same. Another studio in Hangzhou, which is
Uh-huh.
Zhejiang province,
Yeah.
and they asked from Zhejiang Daxue. Zhejiang Daxue is quite a top school in China,
Yes, yes, it is.
right? And not every school is like Beijing Film Academy. They have their own facility, or like Shiping Daxue. You probably know they have their own facility.
Yes.
Not every school has that.
Right.
So basically, this NPO, this contest we are doing, we kind of bridging the industry and the academic sectors.
That's great.
And no offense, but from if you try to hire a guy from VFX industry
Yeah.
with 25 years wonderful experience, and you say that, hey, please learn virtual production without technology. One day, one new item. I think he'll just kick your ass and then go home. He
Right.
doesn't need.
Exactly. So it's not
Yeah,
possible.
so it's possible in only very rare cases. And yeah, so we think it's probably faster to simply train the small young talent kids. So
Well,
also, for
indeed,
example,
I was in a conversation recently with a filmmaker, and we were talking about this issue, how as older creators, myself included, it's even if we try not to, it's very easy to carry the baggage of the past, the weight of the way that we used to do things into what we're trying to do now. And even if we're trying not to, it's still quite difficult. We have experience, et cetera, but sometimes experience can work against you. Whereas younger people who don't know what they can or can't do are very engaged if you give them the opportunity to run with something like that. So I really, we talked about this earlier, of course, when I was in your studio about the 48 hours program, and I've seen some postings you've done recently about the results of that. And again, it's really quite impressive. I think it's actually, for those who are listening to this or reading this, it's really something that is in the service of the industry. And I think a lot more people should be doing that kind of sprint, that agile approach to the technology. I really was very impressed with that when you were covering off. I wanted to
yeah,
ask you, from your position as an expert in the area of virtual humans, how do you see that in recent years, and you've been doing this for a while, you've been working on virtual humans earlier than many people, but what do you see as the most recent advances, and how or what do you think are the most noteworthy use cases currently that virtual humans are being applied?
enterprise,
Enterprise.
enterprise market. And for
Okay.
example, I cannot tell you the name, but we
Sure.
have one client in Tokyo. And this company, what they do is that they service brands. Any brand who want to sell in the retail space in Tokyo, we're talking about department store, gadget store,
Sure.
probably you need to send some promoter there, right? So
Yes.
this company is managing those promoters.
Right.
And they
You need to send
adopt,
a person there basically to do the work in the
yeah, you just
traditional
give them
world.
money and they'll do the, dirty job for you, basically.
Yeah.
I, in the past, finding those people, hiring those people, send them to this store today, send them to
Mm,
the next store tomorrow, the kind of management stuff. But what they are doing now is more like using virtual human.
Mm.
I won't say replace, but share or
Supplement.
supplement, share or make the management job even more flexible, meaning that
Mm.
you probably know that both Taiwan and Japan are getting old, the entire population. So
Yes, the
um,
population is aging.
yeah, and there's a story about 7-Eleven Japan in Osaka. They kind of sue a guy who was the franchisee and say that you cannot, without telling us, and stop the night shift. So that's what he did. He cannot find people, right? But in that particular case, if you think about the one I just mentioned, you can
Yeah.
actually use a real person. In Japanese, we call nagamashito, the person
Mhm.
inside, and this person can sit in the, you know, just just think about it as a call center. And this call center will support, say, for example, 20 retail fronts. Technical speaking, no issues at all, right? We've
So
been
it's a very
doing that for a long
scalable,
time.
it's a very scalable, persistent approach as opposed to deploying a real person here and there and dealing with the logistics of that, the overhead of that. Like you said, it doesn't replace real people necessarily, but it's definitely a powerful supplement, a support to the real individuals who are engaged in that work.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a great example I can think of. And
And sorry, let me interrupt for a second. How realistic often are those avatars? Are they photorealistic? Are they semi-realistic? What typically do you see? Are cartoonish, or does it depend on the brand in terms of like the appearance of those virtual humans? Enterprise?
actually, for enterprise market, even it looks like the Japanese 2D manga, it's actually 3D.
Okay,
Yeah. So if it's 3D, we can run it in Unity, we can run it in Unreal.
sure.
Also, that's a mature technology. So to answer your question, really depending on the client, what kind of
Hmm.
people they try to impress. Say, for example, the retail space we just mentioned, right? The flexibility
Hmm.
is that you can actually have different kind of manga character
Hmm.
targeting different people depending on the last mile, if I can call the
So you can
store
really
last mile.
tailor it to the demographic of your customer base in terms of what appeals to them.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And so what I'm going to tell you the next is not a real example. It's an article I wrote about a year ago.
sure.
So I said that, why don't we use the virtual human to serve those people in the, how do you call it, retirement house?
Ah,
So
yes,
for,
like, if you're sure, if you're going to like retire to a retirement community or
correct.
yeah,
Yeah. And for, in those, shouldn't say those. In the place, the senior people, they might want to ask those people who care for them like 100 times about the same question.
yeah. And the
So
human has unlimited patience with this, right? As you can imagine.
yeah, if you use AI as a supplement, and AI will always answer your question in the same most technically possible warm way,
Right.
you know?
Well, and this is
So
another area where people have talked quite a bit, and it's another question I had that I might be getting ahead of myself, but we talk about like companionship, right? And using virtual humans as companions. And I'll hold off on that for a second, but I want to use that actually as a way to maybe pivot to a question about ethical considerations. So when people talk about virtual humans, they have some questions in terms of, are people aware that they're talking to a virtual human or not? And of course, that depends on how much you see visually versus maybe you're just dealing with them in an audio fashion on the phone. Oftentimes, people are using customer service on the phone or the internet. They don't realize they're talking to a bot. They're talking to a virtual human who they can't see, but it's in many ways doing a very good impersonation of an actual human being providing support or answers. So what do you think are the main ethical considerations that creators of virtual humans need to think about as they're working with this technology going forward?
if it's a service, if it's a market which is done by enterprise, I think
Mhm.
it's a lot easier in that sense because we can roughly ask enterprise to state that this is not real person, in terms because they're
So you make
providing the
people
service.
aware of that. You're very upfront about the
Yes.
fact that this is a virtual assistant, number one.
Yeah. But in the whatever TikTok or YouTube, for those kind of places, number one, you cannot regulate,
Right.
I think. probably you
And
cannot.
customers might also want the illusion that it is a real person, right? They may not want
Correct.
to be reminded that this isn't real. They might want to give into the fantasy, for example.
Yeah, they probably want the freedom to know whether it is or it is not by themselves, not
Right?
you.
It's like, don't tell me. I don't want to know.
Correct. And to back this up, because even the VTubers right now in Japan, the whole idea is that they are watching this kind of content. They are
Yes.
consuming, paying this
Yes.
kind of content
Yes.
in a mobile phone,
Yes.
not on PC, not on
Yes.
laptop, not on TV. No,
Yes.
meaning that this is my private hours. What the hell are you talking about? I'm probably in the toilet or in my bedroom. Don't stretch your hand too far away, no?
Yes.
So
Yes.
they rather here.
And currently, and again, if I'm describing this poorly, please let me know. But I see two areas that virtual humans are being used. One is where they're taking motion capture from different actors, visual capture, data capture from different actresses, etc., and combining them in the aggregate into one sort of like virtual human. Another is an approach where they're building from the ground up a full CGI 3D model of a virtual human. And in the first case, where you're using an aggregate of real inputs, the result is sometimes indistinguishable from a photorealistic, human being. In the case of the CGI builds, oftentimes you can tell, okay, this is not a real person, but it's still very compelling as a 3D model doing the performance. Do you think that one of those approaches will become more prominent? Do you think that they'll somehow merge together? What's your prediction on how that technology, those two approaches, are going to either work together or continue to diverge?
Yeah, I'm probably slapping my own face here, but the VTuber who makes the most money right now, it's a 2D character.
And very obviously not real.
Not at all.
Yes.
But of course, this trend could be changing pretty fast. And again, I think when because we are we could be technology background, we could be production background.
Yeah.
But I think the real decision-making factor is about the viewers. What kind of
The
content they want
connection.
to, yeah? They have connection, they pay. They don't have connection,
Yes.
they don't give a shit about it. So the thing is more like um, when I think about AI or 3D realistic, I
Hmm.
always think about in, say, for example, the number I know in 2022, the top 100 VTubers from Japan, they actually pull in 760 million NT dollars
Oh my God. So
from
760 million
attention.
NT, which, so for people who aren't from Taiwan, who are reading this or watching, you divide by 30, right? But that's still a huge amount
Correct.
of money. We're talking about what, 20 million US dollars,
More than
at
20
least, something
million.
like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
And none of those is AI powered.
Ah,
None. So we can be very excited about new technology. That is so fun. But if you go back to reality, are viewers watching the content created by AI? My
yes.
first question as of today is no. Are viewers watching content created by 3D technology? Yes. Yes. But are viewers watching more 2D content or 3D content nowadays? It's still 2D,
Hmm.
but it's gradually changing. I don't know if I answer your question.
I know, I believe it does, because ultimately, I think what I'm hearing you say is that the engagement with the audience, the engagement with the viewer is the most important thing. And so viewers are not necessarily connecting just because something is more photorealistic, or using one technical approach versus another, but it's really how they feel about the character they're watching, how they feel about the connection, the interaction they're having with. And this kind of relates to conversations that have happened in the past about the uncanny valley, where as you get more and more realistic, there's that dip in engagement, right, just before you achieve perfect photorealism. And I think we're at a point where we're crossing that. But having said so, and when I visited your studio, you showed me some examples where indeed some of the most popular, and we'll put some of these up in the article, some of the most popular characters are not realistic at all, but they're very appealing, they're very engaging, they have that kawaii quality, right, that people respond to, and
Kawaii. Kawaii.
huge viral audience, as a
Yeah.
result.
Kevin, it's called kawaii. Kawaii
Sorry,
is
well,
terrible.
I told you, correct me if I make a mistake. So I know your Japanese is very good. For those
No,
listeners who
no,
don't
no.
know, readers who don't know, I think you're probably as proficient in Japanese as you are in Chinese.
Well,
I'm bad in both. So
yeah. Kevin, let me bring in another aspect, which
sure,
is
go ahead.
well, yeah, what I'm trying. Well, I've been trying in the past like a half year. So I'm kind of a software background, software business
Yes.
background. So I always feel that I don't know what the creators are thinking. And in this
Mhm.
case, I'm referring to the Nagamito, meaning the
Ah,
person who plays for the virtual character.
yes.
So the doggy, Dr. Jiwa, I show you,
Yep.
I actually spent 4 months, talking to the Nagamito, the
Mm.
creator, and try to understand how she feels about the image herself.
Ah.
And then when she starts to practice how to drive the
Hmm.
character to say something, to do something, to show some emotion. And there's really this kind of tiny things that we tech people or production people, we don't give a shit about, but
Yes.
that's really important for them.
I think you said something very important that I don't think people talk about enough. I actually haven't heard many people make this point at all. But the EQ, right? The emotional intelligence of understanding, especially yourself, you're working with a partner, with a client who wants to build a virtual character, a virtual human, really not just a matter of looking over designs or talking about story, which is important, but talking to the individual about how they want to convey themselves. And even when it's a case like this, where it's an abstraction, right, from the real human to a cartoon character, I think that's quite wise. And to get that input as the foundation for what you're doing is something that I really honestly don't hear many developers talking about at all. So I'm glad you brought it up. And I think it's a good point for anybody listening who's doing this work to make sure they're putting the time into that for good results.
Yeah, so the reason why we use a dog instead of a person, that's also something we want to try differently, right? So imagine, usually when we see dog, we see them as what? Pet,
Yeah.
right? And pet does not complain to you. Maybe some of them do, but in a different way, right? Not verbally, that kind of stuff. So the companionship is really, really the core here.
Yes.
And if I can use a bit more Western way, I would say that this virtual character is not going to be successful because it doesn't have a soul. If I can put it bluntly that way, probably
I
easier
understand
for
what you're
Western
saying.
background to understand. But in Asia, we'll say that this character is lacking of warmth.
Hmm.
I don't feel
There's
it.
a limitation in a way, is what you're saying.
Yeah. And so let's come back to AI. So if you say AI will be the mainstream for VTuber someday, and I'll probably say that, okay, if someday AI can create emotion,
Hmm.
I'll probably believe that. But if AI is like the big language model, right?
Right.
It's really an emotion. It's just how you arrange stuff. Yeah,
Right.
correct. And if it's still the kind of a core technology, like the big language model, I say, go away. No need to talk about this.
Right. So what you're saying is if it's stuck in the head, it's probably not going to be as successful. But if it gets to the heart, then you have some opportunity for engagement.
I like to talk to people, Western background, but you understand East. When East meets West, that's important.
Right. The connection really like of soul to soul, heart to heart is the most important thing when you're chatting with anybody. Somebody understands you. Maybe they're not the same as you. Usually they're not at all, but they can at least connect with you on some level that
Right.
you can feel, right? Not just up in the head, but you can feel it with your heart. So having said that, how close do you think that we're getting to achieving virtual humans that are indistinguishable from real humans, either in terms of the artificial intelligence, the interaction, or also the appearance? I know the appearance we're pretty much there, but in terms of really not being able to tell if you're dealing with an artificial human or not, how many years out do you think we are from that in your estimation?
Um, Visually, I think it's probably gonna be pretty fast.
Mm,
Yeah, I'm talking about maybe just 1 year, within
yeah.
1 year or two. Yeah, visually
But then
speaking.
cognitively and soulfully, probably longer.
I'm not an AI engineer background. I'm probably the wrong one to ask for prediction on that part, but I remain skeptical at this moment.
Yeah, part of the reason I asked too is because just earlier before we had this call, I have some trouble with my crypto wallet on Coinbase. So I was contacting their customer support to resolve the issue. And it
Okay.
was immediately apparent to me. I knew right away, but it definitely, I was dealing with a bot, not a human. And unfortunately, it was programmed in a way that it had some preconceived inputs that I could give it to explain my problem. But my problem is actually a little more specific, and I won't bore people with the details now, but because my problem was very specific, I could not explain it in a way that the bot could understand. And I even asked, I said, you're not a human, are you? You're a bot. And it said, I don't understand what you're asking me. And okay, you're a bot. So it was very quick. It was like in Blade Runner, when you're doing that test to tell if you're talking to a replicant or not. It was very quick to realize, okay, I'm not talking to a human being here. Yeah, so I mean, it's a tough question, right? Because that's going to take a while. I think the cognitive and soulful connection of a virtual human to a real human is the toughest nut to crack. The visual appearance, like you said, a year or so. Some people might even say we're already there, but definitely close. So, and that I guess goes back to some of the ethical issues. Do you think that in terms of how this affects us as a society, in terms of our psychology, of how we deal with people, just society in general, in terms of how people interact, how do you think virtual humans going forward are going to impact us as a society? I realize societies vary, right, from culture to culture. Japan is very different from America, for instance.
Yeah.
But do you think that there's I don't know, is there a good way that this might impact us? Also, maybe a way that we have to be careful of?
Personally, I'm not going to conspiracy theory, right? So
Sure. And sorry, it's a big question. I know. I apologize, but
yeah, it's all right. And well, maybe already 2 years. I actually wrote an article about the impact of a virtual VTuber can be to the society.
Yeah.
And my recommendation 2 years ago in the article was that why don't we use it smartly? Try to benefit the economy. So I was writing from the perspective of Taiwan at that time. So I was saying that we only have 23 million people, right?
Right. That's the
So
population of Beijing, basically. So.
Yeah. So if we can increase to 50 million, like overnight, think about what kind of impact that can be. Meaning that if each virtual human a identity, I mean, when I say identity, I mean legal identity, meaning that this virtual human can open company, create bank account, do job, right? So what does that mean? You get one more person to pay the tax, right? From government perspective. And
I think we're going to go in that direction where virtual humans will start to have legal rights, pay taxes, etc. Are we moving in that way?
No, I wrote the article and no legal people responded to me in that particular article. Oh, just simply my imagination.
Well, we'll definitely link that article to this one. I think it's relevant. But because there's been a lot of discussion around this point in terms of, will virtual humans have rights? Will they have responsibilities and so forth?
Correct.
Or will those responsibilities be put upon the person who created those virtual humans? So you're like the emperor of this ecosystem.
Yeah, and my next point is that you only need a table, right, to create 50 million people for your country. And everything is in the computer. So if I'm the politician, I'm trying to increase the importance of Taiwan, I should probably just do that, I'm just kidding. No.
Well, no, but I mean, of course, anybody who's listening to this is thinking in terms of other countries as well. So, for example, if the USA, if China, if Finland, if France wants to increase their population by this same paradigm, the possibilities are almost unlimited, right? In terms of what can happen. I know a lot of people are also talking as well about how, in terms of space colonization, right, which if you think about interstellar travel, etc., you're talking about multiple lifetimes to get anywhere. That's worth exploring. If the idea that will be done by a biological human people are increasingly saying is ridiculous, that will be done with virtual humans. We will have virtual humans who will colonize
Correct.
and who will explore for us. And so it's quite fascinating. You and I, well, especially I'll just speak for myself. I won't speak for you. But as a person who comes from Disney, etc., I always think of everything first from an entertainment standpoint. It's just my strength and my weakness. But I realize that the true power of virtual humans really is beyond entertainment, right? It's about how we live, how we grow, how we explore. The future of mankind even is in large part based upon where virtual humans go.
Yeah, I really see it as a good tool for small countries like Taiwan, even without talking too far away. Say, for example, the animation industry in Taiwan.
Yes.
How many countries can we sell our content to? Probably not too many, right? But let's say technology is so ready. If I hire a Japanese Nagano, so she creates Taiwanese content or Japanese content, but to the viewers, they only see it as Japanese content. Right? They don't really care where it's been made.
Yes.
It's on the YouTube.
Most people don't care where things have been made or how it's been made. They just want to
Correct.
be entertained, really.
But can Taiwan make content sold to Japan by VTuber? Of course. Look at our dog.
Yeah.
And the Nakanisto is a Japanese person.
Yeah.
And think about that. Can I do with English, Spanish, Vietnamese? Wow, I can, right?
Yes.
Really, what kind of content do you know how to manage the Nakanisto?
Yes.
What kind of content are you creating? But let's come back to content, film, game. We have to do that anyway. What kind of content are you creating?
Exactly.
Who want to watch that? Yeah. So
with that in mind, let me ask you this as maybe a closing question. And this relates to what we've talked about, also your work with the 48 Hours virtual production program. If you were to give a final piece of advice to anybody watching, especially younger people, not old people like you and me, but younger people watching who want to get involved with this, with virtual humans, and think about the potential of that in any industry, what advice would you give to people in terms of how they can get involved and what the potential is?
I think the first advice is that don't be afraid, because we old folks, we have already probably clear all the technical blockade already.
Yeah.
So number one, don't be afraid. The support I can tell you is that the Nagano using our software, we only train her for 1 hour. And
1 hour.
She can 1 hour,
Wow.
60 minutes. So meaning that, as I said, no blockade, no technology blockade here at all. So meaning that use the imagination. And of course, you have to know what kind of target audience they are talking about. You want to talk to the teenagers in, let's say, Sweden, then of course, we cannot help you with Swedish. But you can, if you can do with Swedish, you're already there. You can do that and get a character from Kevin. That's pretty
Basically,
easy.
what you're saying is the possibilities are unlimited. It's just a matter of if you know what your vision is, what do you want to do?
Correct.
And to put the time into it.
Yeah, we don't have to go through the hassles that all animation company needs to go through.
Yeah.
You know, to create a story, you have to pitch. You have to go to some exhibition. And if you are from Disney, which is good, a lot of people, they are not from Disney, right?
But you don't have to be from Disney, is what you're saying. You can be yourself.
Basically, if you know what the younger people wants to watch, then usually those who watch VTubers are like less than 20 years old in Japan and also Taiwan.
Indeed. And as we said before, towards the beginning of this conversation, lack of experience, I think in this area is maybe to your benefit because you have no fear and you have no limitations on what you think you can or can't do. So I wanted to, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you're quite busy, but I want to thank you for, this kind of overview of where things are. And we're going to put your contact information, if you don't mind, into the article so that people can get in touch with you if they have questions, and you can ignore them if you're too busy. But I know you're actually very good about responding eventually to people, especially if they're serious in terms of their inquiries. So I want to thank you again for spending your time with us today.
No problem. I had a good laugh. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Cheers. I'll talk to you again soon.
Ciao.
Okay. Bye-bye.